Okay, so let's dive into the company and the kind of the product. So you go through this arc, you're building these distributed teams, you learn all these lessons. The idea won't let go. You validate the idea, you have all these conversations and you say, okay, we're going to commit and we're going to do this thing and this is what it's going to be, is this kind of recruiting platform. I don't know if you have a better word for it. So let's talk about what it is at a high level. So if, for somebody who's never heard of you before, how do you generally, what's your language for explaining what this thing is and what it does and why it's 10 times better than anything else they're doing today?
Great, great. So Turing helps US companies hire exceptional pre-vetted software engineers from all over the world. We ultimately we have a software developer pool of more than 200,000 software developers around the world. We put our developers through a series of tests followed by interviews that test for a whole bunch of things, including computer science fundamentals, algorithm skills, specific tech stack related skills, like are you strong with as a React front end engineer? Are you strong as a Node backend engineer? Are you good with GraphQL or some MongoDB or some other database? All sorts of things that are relevant to different software development roles. Additionally, we also test for soft skills, to things like proactivity, communication skills, where even communication breaks down into raw English fluency, and also into, I guess, how efficient and clear of a communicator are you? Are you the sort of person that one can have a clear technical discussion with, and so on? So we
Mm-hmm.
test for a lot of these different things, and this sort of thing is sometimes we internally call this seniority as well, as opposed to just seniority obtained from number of years of experience. Like this kind of communication is often has a lot more in common with the maturity itself, in a sense. So we assess for a lot of these things, and once we do this, we have a much deeper profile of a developer compared to what is obtainable from a resume alone. And we use these deep developer profiles to match developers to jobs where they are most likely to excel. So from a perspective of a hiring manager in the US, if they are very picky about their quality of talent, and they are finding it hard to compete with the Googles and Facebooks of the world, they want to do speed, they want to do quality, they want to do speed, and they also want to do reasonable cost. If they want to do all three at the same time, Turing is the solution for them. So that is our offering to engineering managers and other hiring managers at US companies. Our offering to developers is basically today we have software developers that are registered from more than 140 countries around the world, and more than 10,000 cities around the world. So believe it or not, every place in the world is not Silicon Valley. Well, yeah, even the Midwest is not Silicon Valley. I have so many friends working in certain Midwestern states in the US, where there's like one tech company within a 30-mile radius. So and the point is, the offering to software developers is the following: sign up on Turing, take our tests, take our tests and interviews, clear that, and after that you probably never have to interview for a job again. We'll do all the hard work. We'll match you with remote opportunity after remote opportunity if you're really strong. Live in any part of the world you like. Live by the beach in a place with really low cost of living, with get a beach house, do whatever you want, and you're still plugged into the world's best technology job opportunities. You still get to grow as a software engineer just like your counterparts in the Silicon Valley, like people like me who are living in the small place in Palo Alto. you you can have the best of all worlds as a software developer. So that is our offering to software developers around the world.
Well, I think you probably close them when you say, and you never have to interview again.
Right. Yeah,
That's
I
really
mean,
compelling. I mean, you're basically saying, look, just kind of like 99 Designs did in obviously a much lower requirement field, where it democratized and said, hey, you can live anywhere in the world and you can be a graphic designer and you can work with great clients all over the world and kind of run your own micro business. You're basically offering the same thing, and I can see that the value proposition to the customer who's, as you said, trying to use job boards or doesn't know how to access people in various countries or doesn't know how to vet them, that this would be a huge win.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. I think from the perspective of a hiring manager, there's just so many different problems to trying to do this from scratch. Because first of all, how would you know where to source? I mean,
Right.
we keep getting surprised at Turing. Trust me, when we started Turing, Jonathan and I knew a lot more about remote hiring than anyone we knew. We did not know there exist software developers in 10,000 cities around the world, for sure. And there's so many countries and cities where we find exception. We have matched exceptional developers to our customers today, where well, we had never even known a single person from any of those countries, leave alone known that they were exceptional software engineers in there.
Hmm.
So there is a sense in which I think the greater internet penetration and all this educational material online, these MOOCs and all that, have been a game
Right.
changer. So I'm not certain if they would be able to sort of turn everybody into a software engineer, as they almost seem to be claiming. But they sure as hell are very effective when you're looking at the 1% smartest, most motivated, and self-driven kind of people. They have a lot more resources to go with. So there are so many exceptionally strong self-taught developers that, and we it is very difficult to predict. I think what countries would sort of surprise us in terms of the amount of talent that springs forth from those countries. So first of all, you wouldn't know where to look for them. Even if you did know that they
Right.
existed in some places, you would not be able to make any sense of their resume. Like today,
Mm-hmm.
hiring managers use all sorts of proxies. Well, did this person go to Stanford? Did this person go to Cornell? Who are their past employers? Have they worked at Google? Have they worked at Stripe? Or have they worked at some no-name company whose hiring standards I do not know about? Now,
Right.
when you're hiring a developer from Vietnam, from Africa, from Russia, someplace else, you as a hiring manager know nothing. You don't know what is a good school. You don't know what's a good university. You don't know what to make of some experience. You don't even know what to make of a job title. Well, what do these people call a senior software engineer again? Is that same as what we call a senior software engineer? Uh,
Right.
so there are all those things, and then there is a matter of, well, there are if you're doing remote, in theory the opportunity is very attractive because you have such a large pool to choose from once you relax geographic constraints. But then there is a question of how do you vet them? You can do the equivalent of 5-hour on-site interviews with so many different candidates where you have no idea. I mean, today there's a large degree of resume filtering and everything that happens in the recruiting process.
Right.
If you can't rely on that anymore, this becomes quite a challenge. Then of
Why
course
can't you
people are
rely on
also
that? What's the issue there?
just because you as a hiring manager in the US, you would have no idea what's a strong university
Oh, that
in
for that reason. Yeah. Right.
yeah, that's right. So
Got it. Yeah, you can't really
I,
interpret the resume, essentially, is the issue.
that's right. And many of our to be fair, many of our developers come from countries where there's probably no university on par with the top 30 universities in the US. But
Right.
does that mean there don't exist people that are just as smart? Well, absolutely not. There certainly are very talented people. It's just they haven't yet got sort of self-sorted into certain proxies for their skill and other things yet. So
And I would imagine as a company trying to hire these engineering teams over, especially as everything's moved offshore over the last, what, 20 years plus, that there's this, as you said, I don't know where to go. I don't know where to source. I don't understand. I have all of these just semantic problems of not understanding their schooling, their job titles, etc. All the things you've just mentioned. And so I think what seems to have happened, and you've seen this probably in spades, is you just see them go, okay, well, we know there are a couple of safe options. We can go to a major kind of staff augmentation shop that's in the Ukraine, or we can go to a major one that's in, pick your top 3 countries. But that leaves out all of this amazing talent that's in these other 9,997, cities in these 137 countries that could be potentially fantastic, but there's just
mhm,
no way to connect the dots. And that seems to me to be the fundamental, aha and the value that you are bringing with this platform is to be able to say we figured out what the barriers are, we figured out how to solve for those barriers to connect this great talent to this great company and make a win-win for both sides.
Yes, absolutely. And in addition, I would also point one more thing that um, even if you were to pick a staff augmentation firm in Ukraine or something else, your choices are still somewhat limited. Maybe they have 500 engineers and you want a team of 20 people. All the 20 had better be in that 500. Like today, we have customers at Turing that have absolutely not had to compromise at all. They might have a team of 20 people, engineers. All 20 are in different cities around the world. They are all experts in their area. There's no compromises. You want iOS engineers with that are experts in a particular narrow skill. I'll find you that one person in the world that is best for that sort of thing. You want somebody else. In contrast, I remember how things worked in my previous startup. Right, like we managed to hire a few really strong Silicon Valley engineers, and when we decided to start building our iOS app, one of our engineers that was fundamentally very strong, well, he picked it up. He spent 2 or 3 months learning how to build an iOS app, and then eventually got much better at it. But the point is that in a Turing kind of model, no such thing is even necessary. I mean, people can sort of do what they are best at, and even teams ultimately we can put people and assemble these distributed teams where every developer comes from a different city in a manner that makes everyone play to their absolute strengths, and that ultimately unlocks the most value, because a manager is interested in having the most value created for them per day or per month or per dollar, what have you. A developer again has the maximum interest in in being in the place where they can be most valuable. I mean, people like to do valuable things. That is what also in the market gets them paid more compared to a situation where they are not quite playing to their strengths. So there is that angle too. I would add that in addition to tapping into talent from all parts of the world, the ability to put together your perfect distributed team. It's not like those 15 people have to even come from this one city. They can all come from different parts if they are the best for the role.
You said at the beginning of the conversation, this is really currently focused on American customers now, as I would assume that the goal of the company would be to potentially expand that to other non and just US based companies at some point. Is that true, first off? And
So
secondly, how far out would that be if it is true?
So we do have customers in Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and everything.
Okay. All right.
But I would say that our largest and customers and the places where we do the largest volumes of business and everything are certainly in the US. I think it's a bit difficult to predict. I guess how well this market will evolve. I think the US still appears to be something of a technology center of the world, and the Silicon Valley even more so. So I, I'm not sure. I think it would be an interesting question to see how I suppose how the world itself advances in this regard.
Okay. So let's just say large technology based companies, huge group of them predominantly here in the US, but certainly operating in Western Europe and APAC as well.
Hmm.
Being the customers, the developers being from all over the world, it sounds like, or software engineers. Actually, that was another question I had is what types of roles are we talking about from most senior to most junior? What's the span of kind of types of folks that you're bringing into the platform here?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, we span the whole gamut on senior to junior. So today, we have found it. I want to say 95%, not 95, maybe 90% of all software developers that we match with companies end up having at least 3 years of industry experience. And though there are some I want to say unusually skilled and also unusually mature junior developers or even developers with zero experience that we have also managed to place. But
Hmm.
that is where we are. And when it comes to the whole seniority track, so yeah, I want to say the occasional junior developer, but more commonly the mid-level developer, the senior developer, the tech lead, the eng manager. We kind of span the gamut. And when it comes to skills, again, we span the gamut there as well. We do I mean we do front end, back end, mobile, AI, data engineering, basically the whole thing, and a whole bunch of specific tech stacks in these things like Node, React, Angular, um, Java, Python, a whole bunch of these specific skills and technologies as well. So yeah, today I think there's been a nice, healthy demand as well as supply. I think in all these places. Invariably at the senior levels, demand tends to exceed supply.
And so again, still staying focused on the roles for a minute. So a lot of this, it sounds like your meat, the core where you started here, kind of entry point is software developers. Do you go into things like project managers and UI and UX designers, and going above and beyond and kind of outside of the general hardcore engineering?
So we have certainly thought about it. I think it's been something of a trade-off for us in terms of, I guess, how much do our customers, how badly do they need some of these roles filled, and how difficult are they finding it to do so today,
Okay.
relative to software engineering,
Right.
and then there is also the question of today, in some ways, I think compared to other a lot of other platforms, we are the fact that we are very narrowly verticalized toward software engineering has sort of served us well, because
I would think
it has
so.
allowed to do sourcing very well. It has allowed us to do very, very deep vetting and deep developer profiles very well. If I had to
Right.
start building a deep profile of a designer and a project manager, it would be somewhat different. It would have certain things in common, but we'd have to um, uh, I, I think one thing we have seen with a lot of these companies is that they spread themselves too thin, and are therefore not able to become experts in serving one specific need. What we
Right.
like about the software development need is that we see this as a giant market. I've seen some estimates that put this sort of need as a $300 billion market. I've seen some estimates that put it at $1 trillion market. But whatever it is, market size
It's
is not
big.
what it becomes a function of how much outside our core do we want to go. Do we think we
Right.
are again, I think the same question of this 10x starts coming up. Well, we certainly are operating at the 10x level now. If we keep plugging away at this, we could possibly be 20x better or 30x better. Do we want to do that, or do we want to get into some of these other things where we are maybe currently operating at 2x or 3x better? It's a bit of a trade-off. I mean, I wouldn't rule
Sure.
out that sort of thing entirely in future, but this is what has, I think, kept us a lot more rooted towards software engineering fundamentally. And at least for the conceivable future, I expect this is where we'll put most of our efforts.
It goes back to the beginning of the conversation. Like, find a big market. In this case, it's a market for software developers. Make and access that market globally. In this case, and then the third being, how many roles, how many types do you want to go beyond software developers or engineers into these other roles? And I think we've probably all had the experience of working with recruiters who try to vet candidates and they don't understand anything about what those candidates do.
Right.
And that's terrible for everybody. It's terrible for the
Mm-hmm.
candidate. It's terrible for the company, because then they get handed all these candidates, in quotes, that are completely off angle and unrelated to what the
Mm-hmm.
actual position requirements are. So I think that the fact that you've decided to focus very, very aggressively and narrowly on software engineering, but at the same time open the aperture on the other end and say, but it's global,
Mm-hmm.
must make you very unique in the space.
I think that is correct. I think it is very, very tempting to sort of get into all these things, because on the face of it, they are somewhat plausible ideas, and they are somewhat good ideas, and the I'm sure great businesses are going to be built addressing all sorts of talent shortages and serving all sorts of needs in the remote space. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're correct. I think the often uh, I guess customers don't want someone, don't want to work with a company that offers certain lukewarm offerings. They want a company to work with a company that has that one killer offering that they really want. So
Yeah.
I think that's certainly driven a lot of our thought process in this direction.
Okay, and this is my last question on this. We'll move on to the next section. In terms of software engineers, that can be a broad term. It can mean a lot of things. As you know, this is Productive AI podcast. We talk to AI folks building AI and ML related companies. In that space, of course, is a huge shortage, right, around data
Mhm.
scientists and machine learning engineers. Would they qualify? Do they fit in your bucket? Is that an area that you work with or not?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, I
Yeah,
thought so,
yeah,
but I wanted to
AI and
check.
data science is certainly. I mean, it is something we certainly something we leverage effectively to help get them jobs and match them and build deep profiles and everything. But so, needless to say,
And
given our
that's on
expertise in this,
internally. Yeah, it's in your systems. But yeah, what I'm
yes,
referring to is,
yeah,
are you then helping place those folks who are living in these
we do.
10,000 cities who could be really great data scientists or machine learning engineers who are, as you said earlier, learning on all of these awesome online materials? So
Yeah,
would
yes,
they would qualify.
yes, we absolutely do. Yes, we do machine learning engineers, we do data engineers, we do data analysts. Yes, we do a whole number of these things. We still consider these to be sufficiently related and very much kind of part of our core.
Okay, excellent. Now, in terms of before we get into sort of the about the business itself, now the part of what's the business model here? Is this all staff augmentation? In other words, who do these people work for? Are they working directly for the customer? Are they working for you? Is it a combination? How's that all
So
structured?
I mean, we invoice companies, and for most part, it's a pay as you go model
Okay.
for companies. Though that said, while we don't really lock customers into these long-term contracts or anything of that sort, we generally only take on customers where it's very clear that they have enough of a budget and a need and everything to work with our software developers for many months or possibly even years, should things
Okay.
work out well. I mean, if they are
Right.
not
Of
happy, of
course.
course, they would not. But at least that theoretical possibility should exist. So that is the only kind of offering that is interesting to us, and even to our developers, for that matter. Ultimately, our developers want long term opportunities. They want the opportunity to grow. They don't want to just be doing a bunch of short gigs that
Hmm.
don't really help them grow as a software engineer. So that is I think the essence of this. So, and yeah, for companies, it's a pay as you go. We handle developer payments. We handle all those things. Companies don't have to worry about any of that stuff. While we facilitate the collaboration in the manner I described, we don't add any unnecessary friction.
Hmm.
For most part, we attempt to make the developer almost part of like some kind of an integral member of the our partner company's team itself. Often our developers work with them just like their other developers and collaborate with them like a core member of their team. So that's pretty much the model. There
So
are some.
it looks a lot more like traditional staff augmentation, where they would come to you, you would help them find them. That person or people would work on their project for a long period of time, months, maybe longer, and then is there some option there if a company says, look, I just want to make an offer to this person and I want to have them literally, I want to hire them in their home country or bring them to this country or whatever? Is there I would assume there's some mechanism for that.
Yes,
And
yes,
then
yes.
does that happen ever?
Uh, uh, yes, the mechanism does exist. I mean, companies can pay a recruiting fee and do exactly this, much the same way they do with
We
other
do it
sort
today.
of full-time
Yep.
recruiting firms.
Yep.
The As for does it happen? It happens, I would say, a small percentage of the time. I think for
Okay.
most part, companies still appreciate the flexibility. Companies still like the fact that, in a sense, Turing is in it together with them. For example, suppose I don't know. Let's say a developer quits. Then it's income. The pressure is then on Turing to find them somebody that's equally good to manage the transition, to manage the handoff, to manage all those things in a situation
Right.
where none of those things happen. Of course, companies are sort of on the hook for that stuff themselves. So I think I guess in our classic staff augmentation model, in a sense, we are almost paid in direct proportion to the benefit that the customer derives from us, basically. And so I think this happens, but I want to say this maybe happens 1% of the time, really. And generally, I think companies only do it after they have worked with a developer for a certain period of time. I've never seen anybody that said, you know what. having talked with this developer and seeing your vetting results, I'll handle everything directly. No, I think
Yeah.
companies first like to build that degree of comfort before attempting anything like that. Yeah.
And
So we just
growth. You've had some crazy growth.
that's right. That's right. Yes, the last year has been very exciting. I think we've grown like some 17x or so in the last 14 months, give or take. And
Man.
we recently raised our Series B, so it was a $32 million round that brings our total funding up to about 50 million.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
I
that was
expect
you raised 30 and that's 50 now total
it's close to 50. Yeah,
ish.
I want to say
Somewhere in
47,
there.
48 something. Yeah, 47, 48. Yeah, we are touching 50. That's right.
Okay.
And yes, we expect to be scaling up a lot of our efforts rapidly in so many different areas, investing more in sales, more in marketing, more in content, build more in building developer communities all over the world, more in our AI and our technology, more in, I mean, basically you should fully expect that as we have raised 10x more money, we would be doing scaling up basically a whole bunch of our exciting efforts 10x as well, to benefit more and more companies even more rapidly.
That's so great. How exciting. And as you said, that's the ultimate metric, isn't it? When you kick this thing off, is this market big enough to support potential growth? And if we're 10x better, can we get on that train? And clearly you guys are there. So that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Now, what's the best place? Well, let me back up. So, what are you looking for now? Clearly, you don't need to go ask the market for software engineers because you have 200,000 of them in your platform. So, what are you potentially looking for that maybe you can't access with your platform that you're building? Like, if you had to just throw that out there to the world and the universe, what do you need in terms of resources, people, team? Is it some of that, sales, marketing, things like that?
Yeah. I mean, we are certainly hiring across a whole number of roles, right? Like, and that's right, sales, marketing, content, business development, product management, and all sorts of things. But I would also add that while we have a large number of engineers, there is a very real sense in which I do think the world has something of a shortage of honest to goodness senior engineers. So by that I mean the engineers who are of the exact same caliber as a level 6, level 7 engineering manager at a Google or a Facebook or a Stripe or an L8 even, like a director. I mean, there is a very real sense today, I think, in which there is certainly a shortage in that area. And
Mm-hmm.
I also expect that part of the reason is just that talented developers, I mean, while talent can get you up to a certain level, you also need kind of the opportunity. You need to be have worked on such problems. You should have worked with such companies on such problems on such scale and all that stuff to actually level up beyond a specific point. So at Turing,
Right.
we are of course doing our best with regard to leveling up developers there. But that said, yes, we would absolutely appreciate more senior engineering leaders join us wherever they are. We certainly can't get enough of them. That is for sure. They end up being disproportionately in demand. And as for individual developers, I think the more they are able to level up and take more ownership and everything, the more valuable they too would become.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look at your own history, right? You were working on things that were, what was it, 40 million, 400 million users, and then you were into the billion and a half users, or 40 million, and then to a billion and a half. You just have to work on projects that gets that scale, and that's what ultimately gets you to step 5 and step 6
Hmm.
and step 7. And that just come. There aren't a lot of opportunities to work at those types of scale unless you're working with some of these projects. So that's a tough one to just develop, anyways.